All right, so let's, just a quick reminder, tomorrow you have vocab 21 through 30. You have a map and a primary source are due tomorrow. You also have a test on Thursday, and your focus and spice are due. How many of you have started your focus or spice? I asked that question in first period, and I had 2 hands up. And you really suck. I know. All right, here we go. So, top of your notes, you should have week 15. We're starting in Africa. We're still in period 4. Here we go. So, nothing you need to write down as in this moment, just listen. So, we're in back to Africa. Instead of looking at it through the European perspective, which we taught it last week, this week we're looking at it through the African perspective. We obviously have the Kingdom of Ghana, which is a major gold trader. We have the Kingdom of Malai, which you should know from period 3. Who can tell me about the Kingdom of Malai from period 3? Annie? Sundita? Okay, and what is his big claim to fame?
He's all like Islam.
Yes, he converts to Islam. Why, Annie?
To like get
To get more trade in a tribe. We're going to see we have an opposing force today. It's very similar. We also have Mansa Musa, of course, the wealthiest man in the world. Now, the Songhay, you're going to write down right now. The Songhay is a new one that you haven't met yet. Now, the Songhay is going, their golden age is going to be by a guy named Sunni Ali, and he is going to build a military with muskets. So if they have a military with muskets, what type of trade do they engage in? William?
European. Oh, I'm sorry, triangle.
What do they trade then?
Slaves.
Slaves, yes, they're in the slave trade. Typically, anyone who has guns is getting them via slave trade. So, you need to know that the Songhay, the golden age, is by Sunni Ali, and he creates an army created from their slave trade. Okay, he has that first musket army, and he is going to control a large territory because he has the most weapons. Is he fighting with the Portuguese? No. He is controlling his area with other Africans. All right, so be aware, you should probably write down the Swahili states fail because of the Portuguese. Now, in AP Art History, you learned about a city that is completely vacant now that has like what you studied was the circle part that had like the really high walls.
Oh,
yeah. The reason why what is it?
The Great Wall of Zimbabwe.
Great Wall of Zimbabwe, perfect. The reason why that city is completely vacated is because the Portuguese are going to kill all trade. Why do the Portuguese kill all Swahili city-state trade? Why, Jake?
They gave the power.
They had the power, and they stopped allowing natives to trade. They were like, no, we're just going to do all the trading. So that's how they essentially took it over. Now, Kingdom of Congo is a very big one, and there's a lot of information about it you need to know. Now, the Kingdom of Congo are going to be slave traders. You need to know that. So they are working with who closely? Europeans, specifically who? Portuguese. So they're slave traders, so they are working with the Portuguese very closely. Now, King Nzinga Mbebe, sure, and you also need to know Alfonso I, you need to know him by 2 names. King Nzinga is going to decide to convert to Roman Catholicism. Ah, this sounds just like who, Annie? Sundita, yes. Now, why do you think King Nzinga Mbebe would want to convert to Roman Catholicism? Why, Evan? Yes, to get along better. Just like Sundita, he converted to Islam in order to facilitate better trade with the Muslims coming across. He's going to do the same thing, as well as, you need to write this down, as well as to distinguish his people from other Africans. Why would he want to distinguish his people from other Africans? Because remember, they're in the slave trade business, Morgan.
So that never takes place.
There you go. He thinks that if they're Christians, the Portuguese won't take them as slaves because they're Christians. How long do you think this is going to work out for them? Nah. Okay, so he is going to convert to Roman Catholicism, okay, and he's going to try to convert the rest of his people, yes.
Was Alfonso the first? Was that like did he
His
change
Catholic
his
name,
Okay.
yeah, that's his Catholic name. So if you get baptized, like my baptismal name is Abigail, So my grandmother called me Abigail once I got not my confirmation name was, so my grandmother, she was around for like 4 years after I got confirmed in the Catholic Church. She would just call me Abigail. That was weird because that's the name God chose for me. Sure. Whoever made her happy. It made her really happy. So, what you need to know is that the Congo is going to try to slow down slave trade. Why do you think the Kingdom of Congo would attempt to slow down slave trade instead of crank it up? Why, Nathan?
Because they don't have enough slaves.
No, they have enough slaves. They got a whole continent of people they can enslave. They can do that, right? Why do you think they would slow it down, Cynthia?
Well, maybe there are people who are starting to get enslaved.
There you go. We're starting to see that there's a blending of people. Do you think the Portuguese noticed a difference between one group of Africans to another type of Africans? No. They're like, they're black. Slaves! We start seeing racism for the first time being tied to slavery in period 4. Prior to period 4 and period 2 and period 3, did you have to be black to be a slave?
No.
No, you could be white, you could be Asian, you could be Middle Eastern. If you were white, you could have tons of white slaves. It's not until we get to period 4, but really in 5, is racism finally tied to slavery. So please keep that in mind. So, the Kingdom of Congo is going to tone back their slaves in order to kind of like, hello, Portuguese. Hello, we're Christians. You can't capture us. And eventually the Portuguese are going to get upset, so what do?
Capture.
They take them over. And that's what you need to know. Okay? The Portuguese attack the Kingdom of Congo, and they cut off the head of the king, and they take over. This is also the first place imperialism is occurring. Imperialism. Now, in period 4, you see all these Europeans are paying for these slaves. Guess what they do in period 5?
Steal.
They just take them. Now, during period 5, you're going to see less slaves, more gold, diamonds, emeralds, rubies, all of these other raw materials they're just going to take for themselves. That's imperialism when you just steal. So next time you steal something, just yell, imperialism! I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, Kingdom of Ndongo is not the same as the Kingdom of Congo. Okay? Kingdom of Ndongo, okay? They are also going to be slave traders, okay? However, they have a queen. Ladies, this is number 5. Okay? They have a queen named Queen Nzinga, and you need to know her name. She's not related to King Nzinga Mumbai. She is Queen Nzinga. Now, she is going to dress up like a male in order to negotiate with the Portuguese. Who can raise your hand and tell me why she would dress up like a male to negotiate? Bella?
So they would treat her like the same.
For sure, absolutely. Imagine if the Portuguese found out that there was a woman leading a country. How do you think the Portuguese would handle that? Exactly. They're going to take advantage of it. They're just going to conquer it because she's a woman. Like, she can't rule, obviously. So she dresses up like a male, and she even has male concubines in female dress attend her. So she is cross-dressing, and they are cross-dressing in this beautiful mess of wonderful. Can we just appreciate that for a second? That's amazing. Anyway, so Queen Nzinga is going to create an alliance with the Dutch, and you need to know that. She formulates an alliance with the Dutch to help beat the Portuguese. They fail, but she is the first African nation to really fight back. So keep that in mind. So she's pretty boss. Can we agree? Hello? She's pretty awesome. What do you got?
Wait, so when she was talking with who, did she dress up like a male?
Oh, the Portuguese. When
So-
she was negotiating trade and stuff like that.
And then behind their back, she would go to the Dutch.
Yeah.
To
Be
try
like,
to get
we
them
gotta
out.
kill these people.
Okay.
They're gonna try to take us over. And they did. Okay. South Africa, you're gonna write 4 words down. South Africa, Cape Town, which is the capital city in South Africa, is controlled by the Dutch. Now, during period 5, we're going to have the Boer War, where the British are going to try to take over South America, which is what, of course, is successful. We have the Afrikaner conflict, which is also going to be a big deal. So it's just laying down the foundation. Today, what language do people in South Africa speak? English. So who wins? English. But the Dutch are there first, so it's important that you know. Period 5, it's a big deal. That's all you need to know. Okay, Islam is going to continue. You just need to write the Fulani are Muslims, and they implement for the first time in Africa Sharia law. Okay? They are Africans in West Africa. They are Muslims, and they implement Sharia law. Who can raise their hand and tell me what Sharia law is? William?
It's the law code that it was followed by, I'm already forgetting his name, Muhammad.
Oh, God, so
sorry.
you can't forget that one.
Yeah,
It's like
it was-
Jesus.
it was-
man.
I
You
know,
gotta
I know. It was the law that he made based on the religion.
Okay, and where did he create it?
In Mecca or Medina?
Medina, and his ummah. You know how he created his own little society? That's where he created Sharia law. This is the first place. Now there's a 2018 connection. Islam is making a huge resurgence. Extremist Islam is making a big entrance in Africa. So today in 2018, we have a growing population of Sharia law, which are harkening back to the days of Muhammad. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for women? Bad thing. Because have things evolved for both men and women since Muhammad and 640 when he died? Yeah. So, it's a big thing coming back. All right, Christianity. So, you need to know the Antonian movement. Okay, this is a perfect example that you could write in week 19 when you are writing your syncretism LEQ. Yes, that is coming. You have to write 3 examples of syncretism that happened in period 4. One of them can be the Antonian movement, which is created by Donna Patrice, who believes Jesus is black and was born and raised in Africa. She's Portuguese, by the way. And fun fact, she thought that she was taken over by a saint. She was possessed by a saint. And that's why she ran around doing all this. Now, Donna Patrice and the Antonian movement has had a huge impact on Africa. Now, syncretism is the one you blend your traditional religion, beliefs, ideas, and culture with the new one, okay? Syncretism, Black Jesus is something that still exists here in 2018. You may see people walking around with medallions of Black Jesus, pictures of Black Jesus. We also have a church here in Tampa that's an Ethiopian church that has a Black Jesus above its mantle. Not mantle. What do we call it? Altar. That's it. Okay? So, they have a Black Jesus above their altar. And some kid earlier today was like, well, that's wrong. Cool. What church do you go to? And the kid was like, oh, I'm actually a Catholic this time. Oh, cool. What color is your Jesus? And he was like, white. And I was like, cool. Is Jesus white? He was like, no, he's brown. I was like, cool. Congrats. Your Jesus is wrong too. Like, who cares at this point? Can we agree? So if you have a white Jesus and you're like, oh my God, Black Jesus is wrong. Your Jesus is wrong too. Let's just let people have the Jesus they want. If you want him purple, make him purple. There's even an Asian Christian church, there's a Korean Jesus. Have the Jesus you want.
It was on 22 Jump Street.
There is that one. There is one in Tampa as well. Yes, there's a Korean Jesus. There's probably a Filipino Jesus. There's a Cuban Jesus. I've seen a Cuban one before. Have the Jesus any way you want. Can we agree? Okay. So, she believes that Jesus is black, wandered around Africa doing all this stuff. It's going to be pretty influential. It still has impacts to this day. Okay. Now, you need to know that Manioc is going to be introduced to Africa and is going to lead to a massive population increase. So, this increased food supply is going to increase population, although we're going to be exporting out millions of people for slave trade. Remember how we talked about this last week? Yes?
Yeah.
Anything? Rod, do we have any recollection of this?
Last content week or week?
That's content week.
No.
You do have a midterm coming up, people. Like, you're aware, right? That is the whole semester. Oh my God. God. Do I need to start doing those stupid, annoying tests that Ren does?
No.
And just test you on whatever the hell I want?
No, you roll a dice and you say, all right, who's
Oh
not?
my God. And I just put up like some dude's name, like have all the names we've learned and just say, tell me about him.
Oh,
I know, on Friday. I thought that was rude. I told him that this morning. I was like, that is dirty. Anyway, so you need to know that Manioc is going to increase the population even though slave trade is occurring. That is weird. I'd put a big star next to it because it's weird as hell. We talked about it last week, but it is a very big deal. All right, let's go to the boards. Here we go. On your whiteboard, please tell me what is the name of the empire that has its first military using weapons, like guns. Good. What is it, Sophia? Songhay. On your whiteboard, please tell me, what is the name of the movement that believes in Black Jesus? Yes. Blake. Antonian movement. On your whiteboard, please tell me what's the name of the chick who started the Antonian movement. Good. Josh. Donna Patrice. Perfect. On your whiteboard, please tell me what is the name of the empire that converts to Roman Catholicism in order to create better trade relations as well as to be like, oh my God, you can't take us with you. We're not slaves, we're Christians. Good. What is it, Evan? Kingdom of Congo. Colton, you need to do better? No, thanks. On your whiteboard, please tell me what is the name of the king of the Kingdom of Congo who will convert to Christianity. I need both names, please. I need both names. Autumn. What is it, Kaiser? There you go. Alfonso. There you go. On your whiteboard, please tell me what name is the name of the empire that is the actual first to take up arms against the Portuguese? What is the name of the first kingdom that is the first to go against the Portuguese? Bobby.
Kingdom of Ndongo.
Ndongo. On your whiteboard, please tell me what is the name of their boss queen who dressed up like a man in order to better negotiate and then said, screw this, let's fight. Good. Who is it, Kylie?
Queen Nzinga.
There you go. On your whiteboard, Queen Nzinga teams up with what European country to try to defeat the Portuguese? Good. Cynthia? The Dutch. On your whiteboard, please tell me which crop is going to lead to a massive population boom in Africa? Good. Morgan? Antioch. On your whiteboard, please tell me what is... That's good.
What country is Dutch?
Netherlands. Alright, so you shouldn't have to write this down. Like, we know this, you shouldn't have to write it down. So African slavery has been going on since period 2. However, was it race tied then? No. It just happened to be Africans were selling other Africans to Africans. There were Romans who were buying slaves in Africa. Everyone, Middle Eastern, not Muslim yet, but Middle Easterners are buying slaves. Everyone's just kind of buying slaves around. Okay, now, what happens is when we get to European slavery, we're going to start saying that they are wealthy. So when you talk in 2018 about how wealthy you are, you talk about what kind of car you drive, you talk about how many houses you own, you talk about your lavish vacations you go on, stuff like that. Now that the Europeans are really in slave trade, they are going to start saying, I own 400 slaves. And that is a symbol of their wealth. So now all of a sudden owning a lot of slaves becomes a symbol of wealth, not just having nice things. Okay, now, just be aware, the Muslims are still slave trading from Africa. They're taking these slaves and they're bringing them to the Arabian Peninsula or to India or the Indian Ocean Basin. You shouldn't have to write it down. Makes sense. They've been doing it since period 2. They've done it in 3. They're doing it in 4. They're going to do it in 5. And they're also going to do a little bit of it in 6. So none of this should be new for you. Okay? Alright, none of this should be written down, but I just want to make sure you know. The Portuguese, when they first came to Africa, they were like, oh my god, we could take some of these people for slaves. So about 60 of them jumped off a boat. In my head, they have a net. I don't really know how they caught them, but in my head, a bunch of white people are running around Africa with a net saying, ah! And they like catch them. Well, they only caught like 12 people and they lost 24. So this isn't a very effective way to catch slaves. So that was a failure. So what they decided to do was start paying Africans to go capture other Africans and then sell those Africans on the coastline to the Portuguese. What is the system that they implement? Africans selling Africans to the Portuguese on the coastline. So they started with climbing on shore, didn't go well. Then they're like, we'll just pay Africans in order to do it. Period 5, what do? Do they pay other Africans to go capture other Africans? No, they don't. They just take them themselves because they're going to hold the whole continent hostage. So they're just going to change. All right. Now, you shouldn't have to write this down. We know this. Triangular trade. Goods are moving from Europe to Africa, from Africa to the Americas, also known as the Middle Passage because it's slaves. And then those goods, cash crops, go to Europe. You already know this, but it is on your test. Now, you do need to know another term. It's called transatlantic slave trade, which is when any slave moves from Africa to anywhere in the Americas. That's just another term for it. Transatlantic slave trade is when slaves are moving from Africa to anywhere in the Americas. Just be familiar with it. Now, the Middle Passage, you shouldn't have to write any of this down. We've covered it pretty intensely, is when Africans are moving from Africa to the Americas. We talked about yesterday how it goes from 4 to 6 weeks depending on the weather. They estimate safely that 12 million Africans were exported from Africa to the Americas. However, modern day research has found that it's probably closer to 20. They estimate very safely, and we know for at least a fact, they estimate about 4 million are going to die at sea. They estimate that could probably be upwards of 8 to 10 million people die at sea. So, this is a huge reason. Why are the Americas importing more slaves in the 17th century than in combined? What new item is around, Jake?
Cotton.
Not cotton. Cotton's been around forever. But what new thing about cotton is around?
Oh,
No. People aren't wandering around naked, man.
clothes. The cotton gin.
The Cotton Gin by Eli Whitney. Now, that's more period 5. However, it's important for you to know that what would become the United States, what was the United States, was about to really give up on slavery within the next 10 years naturally. However, Eli's invention of the cotton gin in 1783 is for the first time is going to make cotton super profitable, which is going to increase slave demand 6 times. Which is why we have essentially what will cause the Civil War, because slave populations have just grown exponentially. Now, your next heading is the impact on Africa, the impact of slavery on Africa. Now, don't have to write anything down from this slide, but just listen. It is important for you to know not every African civilization is trading slaves. There are a lot of African civilizations that thought trading slaves was wrong, and they didn't do it. However, there's also a lot of African civilizations where like, yeah, let's make some money and get some guns. And some rum. Let's not forget about the rum. Okay? Now, the social effects and the impact. Okay? You need to write down that population is growing in Africa even though Africans are being taken for slavery. And that's caused by what? Manioc. Okay? Because the population is still growing and we are seeing distorted sex ratios. For every 2 women, there's 1 man. Okay? So, you're going to see that most slaves are going to be men, so men are the most highly prized. Why do you think men were more highly prized than females, Kylie? Because they're stronger. Where are most of these slaves going, Kylie? To what? And what countries are importing the most? Brazil. And their sugar cane. If you were a slave and you showed up to Brazil, you would have about 6 weeks to live. Okay? So are they going to hire women to do that work? They're not hiring. I'm sorry, that was the wrong term. Are they gonna buy women for that? No, they're gonna only stick with the men. So there are very few men left in Africa. Because of that, we have a new thing called polygamy. Who can raise their hand and tell me what polygamy is? Nathan.
It's the marrying of multiple wives.
Yeah, so one man has multiple wives. And why does this arrive now, Nathan?
Because this distorted sex ratio, and if every woman wanted a husband, it would be 2 to 1.
Yeah, there's not enough men. Keep in mind, a lot of the men who are left behind are old as hell. Why wouldn't slave traders want an old as hell man? Because he's weak and can't do anything. They need young, vibrant men to do all the production, correct? So you have just a bunch of old men sitting around, okay? So when in period 5, when the Europeans get off their boats and start invading the center parts of Africa, they're going to be absolutely disgusted by this thing called polygamy. And because of this polygamy, they justify the murdering of the populations. What's the ironic part of this? Yeah, they're the ones who created it. Polygamy did not exist in Africa until the slave trade. Why did it happen during the slave trade? Because there wasn't enough men, okay? Now, there is one silver lining to all of this. Because there's no men, or very few men, women rise in social power and political power. Now, when we think of stereotypes, okay, for women, who are the most outspoken women? Black women, correct? Hello? Yes, we know. Have we heard of stereotypes before? When we talk about who are the quietest, meekest women, stereotypically. Asian women, yes. And we have white people in the middle, yes. Okay. When you think about it, the reason why women, black women have the stereotypical loud, strong, determined, okay, stubborn, the reason is because black women have been in charge of their social, political, and economic future for a lot longer than any other women on the planet. Why? Because they were the only ones left in Africa to run Africa when all the slaves were being taken. Now, white women, okay, we've only gotten a lot of these rights in the last 150 years, correct? So we are, we're trying here, but, we are not as strong, stubborn, and driven. Asian women have only really gotten these rights in the last 60 years. So that is shaping how we interact with the world. Now, stereotypically, of course. Political things. More guns mean more wars. More slaves means more guns, so more slaves equals more wars. Now, were Africans killing other Africans before slave trade? Yes. However, guns are going to exacerbate it and make it significantly worse. Why? Why is having guns going to make Africans kill more people? Why, Rod? Yeah, you can kill people faster. So if I've always hated you, Rod, and I've tried stabbing you with a knife, and I just haven't been able to kill you yet. Like, I've tried, man. Like, I've really tried stabbing you, and you just always, almost get me every time. Now with a gun, I can stand 50 feet away from you and kill you easily. So guess what I'm going to do the moment I get a gun in my hands? I'm going to run on over and be like, yeah! I show you. That's exactly what they're doing. It's just exasperating it. Now, because it's new technology, it wasn't slowly introduced like it was in Europe, correct? Guns are a novelty. They're a brand new thing. So these people have never seen them because it wasn't built in Africa. That technology didn't evolve. All right. So Africans and on American plantations should be your next heading, please. You need to know that most of your slaves are heading to tropical or subtropical. Why? What major crop is the major crop of focus here? Jake?
It's sugarcane.
Sugarcane. Sugarcane only grows in the Caribbean and in northern South America. Okay? So, you need to know, just be aware, the first plantation is located in Hispaniola. Why is it in Hispaniola, Kaiser? The first plantation ever in the Americas is in Hispaniola. Why?
I would think it's Brazil for Portuguese first happened.
No. Spanish is the first people to get there. Why is it in Hispaniola, Kylie?
So you can grow sugar there.
No, actually they can't. They grow tobacco there. Oh, maybe they can. Yeah, I think they can grow sugar there. Guys, it's where Christopher Columbus landed. That's the first place he landed, is Hispaniola. So it makes sense that the first plantation would be Hispaniola. It makes logical sense. So you do need to know the major crop is going to be sugar, then tobacco, then cotton much later. Why cotton much later? Jake already told us. Why is cotton much later? Cotton gin is not going to be invented until 1783. Once it does, it's going to transform specifically the Americas. Now, they also have coffee. They also have indigo. What is indigo, Bobby? Yeah, and we used to dye it. I don't know. Do they still use indigo today, or is everything synthetic?
Probably synthetic.
I would think so. But in my head, it's my jeans are dyed by indigo. But probably synthetic. All right. So, you need to write Caribbean and South America. These are still plantations, but Caribbean and South America. You need to know there's a difference between the Caribbean and South America to North America. Now, in the Caribbean and South America, you have very small African populations to this day. Now, have any of you been to Brazil? You been to Brazil?
Why is Colombia Colombia is what confusing me. Not even Brazil, just Colombia.
What the hell are you talking about?
Because you know how everyone in South America is basically, I'm not being racist, but white.
Yeah.
And then you go to Colombia and it's a mix.
Yes, that's what actually I'm getting to. If you've ever been to Brazil, which has the largest imported slaves anywhere, there are very few black Brazilians. Why? Kylie. They all got killed. Yeah, if you showed up in Brazil, you have about 6 weeks to live. If you go to Brazil today, there are very few blacks for 2 reasons. A, they're going to die. If you're only there for 6 weeks, are you reproducing? No. And if you're in Brazil and you're doing sugar cane, are you taking women? Or are you going to leave women, are you going to purchase women or no? So there's very few black women. Most of these men are going to die within 6 weeks. And we also have things like malaria. Now, malaria is transmitted via what? How do you get it? With a hand. How do you get it, Bobby? Mosquitoes, absolutely. Guys, you need to write some of this stuff down. You need to know that there are very few blacks in South America because most of them are dying before they really get going. Okay? There's a gender balance, which means it's mostly filled with men. Why? Because sugarcane requires a ton of work. Okay? And obviously, if you know your slaves aren't going to last long, are you going to really feed them and nurture them? No. You're going to let them die pretty quickly. Now, North America, which is your next heading. North America has a lot more gender equality to a degree, which means there's an equal proportion of men to women. Who can raise their hand and tell me why in North America, or what we call America, there are women and men, Bella?
Because they came with their families.
No, they didn't come with their families. No.
To America.
Clarify.
Well, they're settler
Okay.
colonies.
Which means what? We're talking slaves right now.
Oh, we're talking.
Yeah, we're talking slaves. You could justify it, but you didn't. Cynthia.
Oh, well, since they needed a lot of people, instead of just buying more people, they could just make them reproduce.
Okay, yeah, but that's a long time period, and that's really not the reason why. Yes, is it a nice benefit? Yes, but that's not the real reason, William.
So they were more settler colonies,
Uh-huh.
and so women can do work inside a household and do
Yep.
other work like
Guys,
that.
at the end of the day, are the people in Brazil thinking about creature comforts or just making money? Making money. However, in Virginia, Kentucky, I don't think Kentucky is nice. Georgia, I'm like forgetting all my southern states here. Mississippi, Alabama, all of those places, they're here with their families, which means they have a house, right? Which means they're going to import women to do
House chores.
housework. Of course, they're going to make them to do housework and stuff like that. So you're going to see more of an importation of women. If you are imported to North America, your average lifespan is between 10 to 20 years. Okay? Because cotton picking, yes, it still sucks. Believe me, I am not saying their life is easy. No way in hell am I saying that. It's significantly easier than sugarcane production, which means that they have longer lasting lives. And if you're going to be alive for between 10 to 20 years in what we call the United States, are you probably going to reproduce in that time period?
Mm-hmm.
Which means here in the United States, we have a very large, well, we have a moderate pretty large size black population, correct? From this, because their lives were longer, we had people making more, reproducing. What is wrong with me? However, in Brazil, we have very few black Brazilians. Why? They're not reproducing, they're dying from disease. Alright, resistance. You need to know that these slaves are rebelling in every opportunity they possibly can. Now, if you were a slave, would you be working your damnedest every single day to make your slave owner proud? No! No! The harder you work, the faster you die. So, you're probably not going to work that hard. Now, keep in mind, this half-hearted work that these slaves are doing is going to justify the Jim Crow laws post-Civil War. They're going to say that blacks can't possibly have their own rights. They can't do the workload. Look at them. They do half-hearted work. Why were they doing half-hearted work? Because they were slaves, damn it, and there's nothing they're doing that's going to benefit them. That's why. But that same mindset is going to be used to justify Jim Crow. They're going to sabotage for sure. They're going to burn down what they can and not hopefully get killed. They're going to destroy machines. They're going to sabotage as much as they possibly can. They're also going to run away. We have maroon societies. If you've ever been to North Carolina's, what is their waterways called? Oh, shit. It's like the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Have you ever been out there? There are tons of societies out there, historically, that are black communities, that are 100% black communities, and we're not even really included in all of this stuff because of how much all the runaway slaves. Creole country, the bayou down in Louisiana, was filled with maroon societies. They just ran as far away as they could from the actual landmass and created their own societies. What do you got, William?
You heard of like the Meludgeons?
No? What is that?
No, so my dad grew up in Boone, North Carolina, and right around there was like the last Meludgeon society. It was an African society, and they were coming over here for slavery, and then they got all killed in Africa, and so like the last Meludgeons on Earth
That's pretty
are
cool.
in North Carolina because they ran away and whatnot.
That's really cool. Really sad, obviously.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Are they still there?
Yeah. Like my dad's friends with a couple of them. Grew
That's
up with
awesome.
them.
Yeah. And then they're also going to have revolts, which means they're literally straight. Are you going to be okay, Morgan? You are just so stressed right now. Why don't you go talk to him?
No. I won't get anywhere.
You go into his class while he's teaching, he goes, I'm teaching, and he turns his back on you.
Well, why don't you go during break? I'll tell Ren where you go.
No, it's okay. I'm scared of him.
You should go with
And
him.
then if you ask the guy a question, he'll go ask. He goes, I don't know. That's for you to find out.
That's annoying.
Or he just says, good question.
Revolts! So, the first and only successful revolt is going to happen on Santo Domingo, which is what we call Haiti today. The Haitians are going to overthrow the French and have the only successful slave revolt. Jamaica's going to do a pretty damn good job overthrowing, but they're not going to completely kick off the British. Santo Domingo is the only one to do it. Now, I don't know if you remember this because I feel like a lot has happened in the last 2 years. At the very beginning of the Trump presidency, he called Haiti a shithole.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, you remember that? The reason why Haiti is a shithole, if you want to use that term, which I would never use that term, by the way, however, using the words that were provided, the reason why Haitians are so proud is because they were the only ones in the Americas to be able to repel and to throw off every single colonial power. That is hella impressive. Second reason, why is Haiti a hot mess today? The United States! And we'll get to that in period 5. What?
There's a box of the disasters.
Well, yeah, that also doesn't help.
Really unlucky. Like they try and rebuild and then
But it's really impressive that they are the first ones to overthrow. Can we agree? And they're very proud people, and they should be, because they're the only ones in the world who overthrew their colonial oppressor. That is impressive.
But I smashed the entire car off on
Miss Bennett.
Yes, my darling.
We'll put it right there.
Remember back.
Wait, was that last year?
That was last year, yeah. And
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get in trouble for it. but it made me feel real guilty all weekend.
Oh, that's
Bye, sweetie.